Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thanks for giving me a shot. If you are not new here, thanks for returning. Anyway, today's topic is back to school. It is back to school season, at least where I am. And I know a lot of the world went back to school pretty recently or is going back to school pretty soon. I don't know about everywhere, but I know there's a number of places. There's a number of places that are starting school pretty soon. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about school related books, not books that you would necessarily read in school, but books that are about teachers, students, professors, etc. I had a surprising number of books in this category, but I did manage to narrow it down to this stack that I've had my hand on. Yeah, let's get into it, shall we? I have a bunch of books here that I thought were worth a mention, worth talking about. I know a lot of people who aren't in school anymore. It still feels kind of weird. This is the third fall since I have finished my master's degree, and I'm still like, "Woo, back to school time." Like I think that it was just so ingrained in my brain for so long that fall means I have to go back to school that like it feels odd now. So if you are either going back to school and looking for someone to relate to, or not going back to school and looking to still have a little bit of that excitement in your life, these might be some good picks to check out if you have not already. This is mostly modern lit fic. I do have one classic and one that I think could be considered a modern classic at this point. So if that interests you, please stick around. So the first book that I wanted to talk about is Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. This book is about a sixth year PhD student who is dealing with a lot. If you are a PhD student or you have any PhD students close in your life, you know how busy they are anyway between their own assignments and TAing and being a research assistant and, maybe even teaching their own classes, etc. On top of that, she is dealing with her mother's profound mental illness and trying to take care of her, and additionally, reflecting on the death of her brother, which took place when she was a teenager. Obviously, that sort of thing never quite leaves you, and she's thinking about it a lot as she's watching her mother struggle. She is a neuroscience PhD student. She is trying to study mental illness less from a psychological standpoint, but more from a neurochemical, neurobiological sort of standpoint. And while that's really important research to do, she does find herself craving some more meaning and emotionality rather than just like the hard science of it all. So she starts reflecting, as I said, on like the death of her brother, but also thinking a lot about the religion that she grew up in. The main character, much like the author, was born in Ghana but raised in the United States, raised in the evangelical church, and she's just kind of grappling with a lot of different things, all of these different intersections of meaning, the science and the emotionality and the religion. I did enjoy the well, enjoy feels like the wrong word because it was really heavy and emotional, but I did really appreciate this book as I was reading it. I think that it was done really beautifully. Even though a lot of the experiences that she's discussing weren't relatable, I did find it to be a very emotional read for me. I think that the author did a good job, and I therefore think that this is worth checking out, whether or not you see yourself in the sort of story that I just described. So that is Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. Let's move on, shall we? So, next, I want to talk about a duo of books that I hold really near and dear to my heart. These are one of the few books that have made me both giggle and tear up a little bit, which is really crazy for a book to do. I think with the feelings in books, I tend to intellectualize them more than I feel them, and I think that of course I did some intellectualizing with this one, but I really felt it too. And this duo of books is The Idiot and then Either or, both by Elif Batuman. Uh, these these books, I cannot recommend them highly enough. This follows a Harvard student. The Idiot is her freshman year, and then Either Or is her sophomore year, and she is just so charmingly socially inept. You really watch her stumble through all of these different situations through her time at school. Obviously, she is very bright and she is very book smart, but socially, she's she's doing her best. She's not completely failing, but she's just kind of delightfully naive, and it is narrated in a way that is so funny. I think that if you see yourself in the description of student, pretty bright, a little socially awkward, but overall well liked, I think that these books will really kind of strike a chord with you too. In the first book, she meets this older student in one of her classes, and she just becomes kind of enamored. And despite the fact that he has a girlfriend and he's said that he is not interested, he kind of acts interested, and she really thinks that there's a door to be opened here, to the point where she decides to go try to teach English in Hungary that summer in hopes of seeing him because he's from Hungary. And you just kind of watch her stumble through it all, and it's really charming. It is really incredibly charming. I don't always annotate or tab books. I have a separate notebook that if I'm having thoughts on something, I will write in that notebook instead of in the book. But these, well, first of all, I think I read these before I had that notebook. But these, I left so many little sticky tabs in of places to return to later, just little bits that I thought were funny or touching or cleverly written. Those words that I just said, funny, touching, and cleverly written, really describes the entire book and the entire other book. Fun fact about where I got this book, in the town of Eastham, Massachusetts, which is not where I live, but it is somewhere that in the past I went frequently. In the town of Eastham, Massachusetts, at the town dump, there's this place, I think they call it like the stock exchange or something funny like that. Um, my grandmother, who was the one who discovered this and often took me, calls it just the dump. I mean, it is the town dump. So she would often be like, "Hey, do you want to go to the dump?" And I'd be like, "Hell yeah!" Because in the they have this little shack near where all of the garbage is, where if you have something that you want to get rid of, you can just leave it there and then people will take things. So it's like a free little library, but for literally anything. Like there's cookingware in there, there's clothes, there's whatever you can think of is in this like little shack. And so I always check out the books because you never know what you're going to find. And I found this. I had seen it around. I had seen that it was on sort of a lot of lists, including other books that I liked and enjoyed. It seemed like the sort of book that a reader like me would like. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give a chance on it. I'm going to give it a chance. And I read it maybe a month later, and it wound up being the best book that I read that year of 2023. Yes, 2023. And I learned not long after that there was the sequel, which is this, Either Or, which goes over her sophomore year, and I ordered it immediately. I knew that the author had other books. Well, when I say other books, she has this one, and then as far as novels, I think that's it. So like if by some miracle you are watching this, please, please, it does not have to take place in the Harvard Cinematic Universe. It can be anything else, but please, another novel. I need it. I need it so bad. Like, take your time, Queen. Rome wasn't built in a day, but please. Anyway, I ordered this immediately and I read it immediately, which is rare for me. Usually, when I like a book, like I'll order something else by the author or the sequel or something, and I will let it kind of sit on the shelf for a while and then I will read it. This almost immediate. That really says a lot for me. I've been talking about these two books. I've been rambling on about these books for a while. I'm sure this will be edited down to something a little bit more coherent, but as far as back to school books go, these two are top tier. I wanted to put them earlier in the video so maybe more people would see them. Um, But yeah, read those books. Next, I think we're going to talk about the one like classic that I had in this stack, and that is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. A lot of people know Charlotte Bronte for Jane Eyre. I did like Jane Eyre a little bit more than this. Jane Eyre is among my favorite books. Villette, though, I think is worth a read. I think this gets a little bit more mixed reviews, but I personally enjoyed it. It did take me a little while to get through because I think I started it when I was getting kind of busy and I put it down and kind of forgot about it and then came back when I was less busy and it was much more smooth sailing. I had a lot more brain space to deal with this. One thing I will say about Charlotte Bronte and generally, but about this book, is that she does. I'm trying to find an example of this. She does like having random dialogue in French, and in most editions, especially at least in not in this one, this is a random edition from a used bookstore that I found. I don't think that this edition has been in print for quite a while. This is an old copy. But at least in this edition, there's no translation for all of the random French dialogue that is thrown in. Not a ton of it is super consequential, but if you don't have a working knowledge of French, at least some basics, you might want to have Google Translate on hand just to kind of get a sense of what they're talking about. It doesn't make it unreadable, I don't think. I should warn people before they decide to commit to this because it's long too. So there's a lot of French and it's long. But anyway, what's this about? In this book, our heroine Lucy, she is much like many other Bronte heroines. She is somewhat young, a bit dramatic, very dramatic actually. She goes to France and she teaches at this school. Chaos ensues. She is young and dramatic and maybe what we today would consider to be mentally ill. And she's in this old creepy school and she's maybe seeing ghosts, but she's definitely having a lot of interpersonal drama, a lot of which is almost silly. The joy of this book is watching her kind of stumble through things. I think it is a very different vibe than the last books that I just talked about. This is a lot more of a dramatic kind of gothic stumbling through things rather than a like funny yet touching stumbling through things. So it's still stumbling through life and maybe getting yourself into drama that's unnecessary and also maybe being kind of mentally ill. But the vibe is different. It is a lot more Victorian, a lot more gothic. I wouldn't quite consider this to be a gothic novel. I'm not any sort of expert in gothic literature. I don't think I can really categorize this, but I think it has some of the kind of elements of the era. I think maybe a better comparison, not in content, but just kind of in vibe, would be Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, where it's gothic-ish, but it's maybe more kind of poking fun at some of the tropes, I guess, in that genre. I can see a similar type of reader enjoying both of these books. This is kind of off the cuff. I'm not really 100% sure if a scholar would categorize it that way, but that is how I kind of think of it in my head. And I definitely think that despite its chunkiness, actually, this doesn't look too thick. It is. My edition's like over 600 pages, though. I think a lot of editions. It is kind of chunky, and that can be intimidating. I don't know if I would go into this as like my first of the Bronte sisters, but if you've read Jane Eyre, if you've read Wuthering Heights, if you've read, I don't know, other Bronte sister stuff, this is worth a shot. This is a good place to go after the obvious choices of Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. I know amongst the Bronte sisters, I believe Anne has a book that's about a teacher or like a governess, and I believe that Charlotte has one as well, but I have not read those. I've read Villette, so that is the one that I can recommend to you. This next book I want to talk about, we're going a little bit more modern. I think it's a bit controversial. I think it's a real hit or miss with people, but I wanted to talk about it anyway because I did think it was well done. and that is Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. As you can tell from the cover, this book is a bit salacious. I wouldn't say it is smutty by any means, but it is about a professor and her longings, desires for one of her fellow professors who is a bit younger than her, named Vladimir. Hence the title, Vladimir. This book also notably, shout out, I guess, takes place in upstate New York. My upstate New York girls know not enough love is given to upstate. All of the hype is given to the city, which, listen, it has a hard time dodging the greatest city in the world allegations a lot of the times. However, upstate, we're often forgotten about, so anytime anything takes place in upstate New York, it's a little added bonus for me, because a lot of times I'm like, oh my god, I know where that is! I've lived in a couple different places in upstate now, so anyway, this is the sort of book that I would advise against reading if you are the sort of person who wants to be able to root for literally any character. If you're the sort of person who wants to have a sympathetic narrator, main character, or at least some sort of sympathetic character at some point in the book, this is not for you. This is a book of awful people being awful and doing awful things to each other. And it's not for you. It is not for you if you're looking to have someone to root for. I'm sure you could choose someone to root for, but would they be a good choice? Probably not. Anyway, the narrator is a woman, a professor who is a little bit past middle age, I believe. I think she's like 60-ish maybe in this book. A lot of this book is very in her head, so you kind of see what she thinks and how she is viewing the world, especially how she is viewing her younger students, new trends, new things that students are willing to accept or not willing to accept, and kind of struggling with the change of maybe the last couple of decades worth of maybe social progress. Her views are not left back in the 60s or even the 80s, but there is maybe a few things that she's kind of having a tough time kind of understanding where the students are coming from and why it matters so much. And so I think it is interesting to kind of see just the inner workings of someone's head that is not you, that is very much not you. I am quite a bit younger than that, and I am not a college professor. I do feel like I have seen mixed reactions to this because of that, but this book is, at least the copy that I have, is less than 250 pages. It's not a particularly long book. If you feel intrigued by this concept, it's not a super big commitment. Even if you have a hard time slogging through the inner workings of this professor, there is kind of a big, I don't want to say explosive ending, but I was shocked. I did not think that this is where the book was going. So I do think it is maybe worth checking out, and that is Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. Next is a book that hardly needs introduction. This is a book that I have seen all over the internet. If you are on any sort of book-related subreddits, this is frequently suggested. It is overall pretty well loved, but it might not be for everyone. We'll get into it. Anyway, that book is Bunny by Mona Awad. This is about an MFA student in a creative writing program, and she is one of 5 students, I believe, in the writing program. She doesn't really fit in with the other girls in her program. They're all already friends, and they're kind of a weird little clique, and they all call each other Bunny. So they don't they don't call each other by their names. They're just like, oh, hi, Bunny. Like, oh my god, hi, Bunny. And it's a little creepy. It's a little unsettling. And the main character does get invited to join them one day, and she just kind of falls down the rabbit hole, pun intended, I guess. She falls down the rabbit hole of their little cult of 4, almost. They do some pretty messed up stuff, the 4 of them. They are really cutesy and whatever, but they don't let that fool you. They're pretty brutal, these girls. This book gets quite surrealist. While I do think it is pretty well liked, maybe even beloved within the weird girl lit fic community, I can see where this really just wouldn't be for everyone if you can't deal with a certain level of weirdness. If you can't deal with any sort of surrealism, this is not it. This is not the pick for you. Find something else. There is supposed to be a sequel that comes out to this pretty soon, I believe, if you're watching this in September of 2025. I believe towards the end of this month. I don't know that this needed a sequel. I almost wonder, just because this is so popular, if this was the publisher telling the author, like, hey, the bunny money is running out. We need you to stop that from happening. I did read Rouge by this author as well, and I really, really enjoyed this. So I think I'm willing to give the sequel a shot, regardless of what inspired writing it. I don't know. I'm a little hesitant. I think this might be something where I wait for a copy at the library to be free. But if you by chance have gotten your hands on it early or something, or you're maybe just watching this after it has been released, let me know what you thought of it, because as I said, I'm skeptical, and I think that I will probably wait a little bit to read it. But all that aside, the original Bunny I thought was pretty good. I think it is worth a read, um and yeah, that's that. Next is a book about a professor, and it is less about the professing and it is more about her life outside of being a professor. But I did want to include it just because I don't think I've seen this one around a lot, and I think that it is maybe worth talking about a little bit more than people have been. That is Liquid by Maryam Rahmani. This book is about a professor who has been adjunct since she graduated grad school. She's not even really sure if she's going to be able to keep doing that. And she decides that the solution to this is just to marry rich. So she decides to make a spreadsheet so she can track going on 100 different dates over the course of her summer break. I have seen this compared to The Idiot. Well, I think The Idiot holds a nearer and dearer place in my heart. I can kind of see the comparison. You do kind of watch the main character kind of awkwardly stumble through all of these dates. She is bisexual. She's really fumbling men and women left and right, and it is kind of charming and entertaining to watch. However, her journey to go on 100 different dates does get stopped short when she learns that her father is deeply ill and she has to go back to see her family in Iran. And she starts kind of stumbling through all of her social interactions there too. So I really can see the comparisons to The Idiot, and if that is a book that you've already read and enjoyed, this might be a good place to go after that. Especially because I think that it is really hard to kind of capture the specific magic that The Idiot created for me, and I think that again this didn't quite hold up to that, but I do think that it was good enough that I think that more people should be talking about it, especially those who enjoyed that. Anyway, that's really all I'll say about that. But yes, that is Liquid, a love story by Maryam Rahmani. And when I was kind of looking through this book, I noticed in the back that the author currently teaches at Bennington College. Bennington College is a small liberal arts school in Vermont. And wait for it, it happens to be the college, and some of you maybe already know where this is going, the college that inspired The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which is the last book that I wanted to talk about today. If you have been on the internet at literally any point in the last 5 years looking at books, you have heard of The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I am not the type of person to say that this is worth the hype very much. In general, hype kind of scares me. I'm kind of afraid that if I read something that everyone is like really, really hype about, that the hater in me is going to come out and I'm not really going to like it, and it's going to feel weird because people are going to ask me like, oh, you read that, did you love it? And I'll have to say no. So a lot of times when books are really hyped, I simply don't pick them up. But something inspired me back in 2020 to pick this up, and I am so glad I did. This is one of the few book talk books that I believe is really worth all of the hype that it gets. I have read this book twice. I read it in 2020 and I lied when I said I read this in 2020. I read this in 2021, I think. I read this a few years ago, and then I read it last year as well. if by chance you are unfamiliar, it is about a bunch of classics students at a small liberal arts college in Vermont. So that based on Bennington College. They also kind of have a weird little cult thing going on, kind of like Bunny, but this is a lot less surreal and a lot more sinister. I really do think that even if you're not in the back to school mood, this is a perfect fall read. Both times that I've read this, I have read it in September. It's so good. It is so good. It has so much. If you are an enjoyer of classics like Greek mythology, Greek and Roman philosophy, that sort of thing, this has a lot of little things in this for you. As I said, because the students are studying that. I think even if you're not, this does have a lot of intrigue. This is another book I would say that if you need a character to root for, maybe this isn't it. I do think that some of the characters are a little bit more sympathetic than in Vladimir, but not much, really not much. And depending on your read of them, maybe they're all worse. I do think that this book has already kind of made it into the canon of modern classics. This book had been out for almost 30 years by the time it started getting a hype on TikTok around 2020. This book came out in, I believe, 1992. If that kind of helps you get past the hype, because I know I can't be the only person who gets scared when things have too much hype. Maybe it is just me. Maybe that's just my toxic trait, but I feel I can't be the only one. So if you're kind of in that boat and the idea of this being much older than Book Talk and receiving critical acclaim before Book Talk helps you read it, then please do. Please read it. I think it is a fantastic book. I think it is popular for a reason. You can get more out of it than the story. I think that the story is fun, but there's maybe a bit more complexity to it than people give it credit for. And I think that if you go into it with that mindset, you might enjoy it. Anyway, I'm not going to say too much more about this because, as I said, everyone knows this. If you're looking for a brief plot synopsis before going in, I'm sure you can find one. However, I don't even really think you need one. I think this is a book that it's best just to go in dry. I think this is a book that you can really enjoy if you go in really not knowing very much. But yeah, that is it. Those are all of my picks for back to school books. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you back on the channel soon. Goodbye!